See, we had an idea कि ठीक है warehouse automation, factory robotics करना है, but वो भी एक बहुत wide field है. There could be hundreds of things that you could do. We follow a framework of 3D: dull, dirty, and dangerous. So the job should be dull, dirty, and dangerous in nature. Those jobs should be automated. Taking the example of an airport, I can have 100 autonomous mobile robots, which will be of same type, where I can keep the luggage. I don't need to modify each and every robot. So the scalability should be there. The problem repeatability should be there. And then obviously the software should add value. It should not just become another subscription tool.
I'll come to the industry now, robotics, warehousing in general, automation, very capital intensive, slow to scale. In such a scenario, how do you convince your ecosystem around you to put a bet on your vision?
We compete with Japanese players, we compete with Chinese players, Germans, Austrians, obviously Americans. There is something that really sets Indian companies apart in such contexts, which is the software. Every big company you can think of has a software development center in India. There's a reason for it. 2017, there was an election in Uttar Pradesh, and we saw in advertisement in newspaper, a photo of Chief Minister का startup UP scheme. You can apply for plots for building up factories. Lottery system है. तो हमने apply कर दिया है. हमारा interview भी आ गया. The IAS officer took our interview. Didn't believe कि we are building robots.
What do you think is stopping people now to enter in this space?
So we are a very education-based country. जहाँ पे फिजिक्स मैथ्स पढ़ो, पाइथागोरस थ्योरम प्रूव करो तो वैल्यू है. अगर तुम कुछ बना रहे हो हाथ से तो उसका वैल्यू नहीं है. इन इंडिया, इफ यू हैव टू बिल्ड अ बिजनेस दैट स्केल्स फास्ट, you need to go for automation. So we just did a solution for Blinkit. If they are saying they will deliver you in 10 minutes, they have to deliver you in 10 minutes.
Someone truly special with us. We have Mr. Satish Shukla, who is the co-founder of Addverb. Right? He's an alumnus of TISS Mumbai and has spent more than a decade in HR, supply chain, and robotics. Co-founded his company along with 3 of his founders. It's a privilege to mention this, that they are one of the largest in the country in this space. 400 plus customers worldwide.
Thank you for having me.
So Satish, very inspired by your journey, right? You started off as an HR at Asian Paints, then moved to the production side in the Asian Paints, and then ended up co-founding this robotics company, right? I mean, typically a journey you don't generally see around, right? How did this happen, right? How did you find your co-founders? How did this transition happen is something I'm super curious about.
To probably answer your question, I would like to go a little bit further back. And so, see, a lot of time you plan your transitions in life, your career, your journey in life. But if you come to think of it, usually nothing works as per plan, right? So none of this that happened was part of the plan. In fact, there are a lot of people who aspire to be an entrepreneur. I think I aspired to be an employee. I was brought up in an industrial township. My father worked for Grasim Industries. So I was brought up in a very small place called Nagda, very small industrial township, but a true cosmo, because at those times in industrial townships, I had people from all the states that you can think of. So my neighbor was a Malayali. My people who were living below me were from Tamil Nadu, right? We were a native of Uttar Pradesh, etc. So there my father used to go and work in a factory, morning 8 till evening 6, Monday to Saturday. There was no concept of a 5 days week. Right. So all of us would aspire कि हाँ ऐसा ही job लगना चाहिए. That's what we thought. And since it was a manufacturing facility, I chose engineering, but I did a mistake. I chose software engineering.
Interesting.
Because I did my plus 2 in 2007 and everybody was doing software at that point of time. Within 1 year, I realized it's a trap. It's a mistake, and I think I should have not opted for software engineering. And then I sort of took more time, obviously not studying, but thinking on what to do next. So this was the time when 3 Idiots had come.
Right.
So वो 3 Idiots में दिखाते हैं ना कि पहले engineering कर लिया, फिर MBA कर लिया. So I felt कि MBA is the right thing to do. And then on my own, I just decided HR is the right field. So I tried to enter into colleges. I applied for colleges which had HR specialization. And that's how I ended up in TISS. So nothing planned, nothing I knew. But I knew कि हाँ एक manufacturing में अगर job मिले, तो I think that will be good.
Because you had seen it for yourself.
Because I had seen manufacturing setup, right from the time I was born. So मुझे लगता था यही दुनिया होती है, एक कुएं का मेंढक होता है. This is the world. This is what you do. You go and do 8 to 6, not even 9 to 6, and you do it 6 days a week. Right. Then, by God's grace, I got into Asian Paints, and Asian Paints was kind enough to give me a stint at their Rohtak factory. So Rohtak factory was, I think still is, one of the world's largest paint factory, highly automated, and that's where I joined in HR. So I was manifesting कि फैक्ट्री में जॉब करेंगे, फैक्ट्री में जॉब करेंगे,
और HR करेंगे, और दोनों
और HR करेंगे, और वो हो गया. Now none of this was कि ऐसा प्लान, बस सोचते थे कि ऐसा होगा,
right,
sort of a thing. There I met my other co-founders. So Sangeet Kumar, who's our CEO at Addverb, he was the factory manager, and I was a young management trainee, 23 years old, walked into the factory. At that time, senior manager HR जो थे फैक्ट्री के, he had resigned. So वो पोजीशन ऐसी थी कि वो टिपिकली पोजीशन ओपन ही रहती थी हाफ ऑफ द टाइम, बिकॉज दे वुड टिपिकली टेक अ tier 1 MBA grad, and then you would become a senior manager after working for 5 to 7 years. लोगों की शादी हो जाती थी, they would have a working spouse, so they would not go in a remote location like Rohtak and work. तो वो पोजीशन थोड़ी vacant रहती थी ज़्यादा, so it remained vacant for 18 months. So I think God was kind, and I got to work with the factory manager directly. Because there was no manager, so I would report to him, and I would go to him, and I had no prior work ex. So there was a lot of good, high-quality interactions that happened.
Right.
My other two co-founders, Pratik and Beer, were also senior managers of other department at that time. And that's how I got to interact with them. After doing HR for 2 years, again in my vanity, see, when you're young, आपको लगता है you know it all.
Right.
Right? कि हाँ, मेरे से ज़्यादा दुनिया तो देखी नहीं है किसी ने. And I did not have a boss. I felt that I am the authority on HR. So I don't know, in my stupidity or again, God had that plan, I sort of put in a request that I want to move into production.
And this was after how many years?
18 to 20 months. Had nothing to do with the new senior manager who came in. Right? It was my decision. I felt कि यार फैक्ट्री का HR देख लिया, हरियाणा में operators देख लिए, ये देख लिया, बहुत कुछ देख लिया. And obviously I was influenced by my factory manager, who's also my CEO, because he was a charismatic leader, worked with him. तो मुझे लगा यार, अगर HR का सही यूज करना है, तो एक people heavy function होना चाहिए. So that could only happen in production, where I have 20, 30, 40 people and some contractual staff. Then only I can apply HR concepts. So this is the thing that I told my HR head, who was also my professor at TIS. So professor of practice. So for all that 30-minute conversation, he kept on smiling. I didn't know why he was smiling. Now I look back, I realized he would have been thinking, क्या बोल रहा है ये? क्या बच्चा बोल रहा है ये? But then I have a lot of respect for Asian Paints and all those people because they were gracious enough to move me from HR into production. And there was a brownfield expansion project that was happening at that time. But the organization was so confident of their systems and processes that they felt कि ये हो जाएगा. So then they moved me into production. There I got to work for 1.5 years. Then one fine day, Sangeet called me up. So Sangeet had moved out of that factory to Shri Perumbudur factory, which is in Chennai. Yeah. And then he called me up one day and said कि Satish, I'm planning to start an organization. तुम आएगा क्या? तो अभी ऐसा सब पढ़ा था, people don't leave organizations, people leave managers. तो मैंने उसका reverse apply किया कि you don't join an organization, you join your manager. So literally I didn't ask him anything else. कि क्या इक्विटी होगा, क्या सैलरी होगा, क्या करेंगे. मैंने बोला हाँ सर मैं आएगा, तो लेट्स स्टार्ट. एंड दैट वाज द कॉन्वर्सेशन, दैट्स इट. आई रिमेंबर आई वाज एट माय होम एट होली, वी डिड अ स्काइप कॉल फॉर 15 minutes, एंड फॉर 10 minutes ही केप्ट ऑन टॉकिंग हियर एंड देयर, इधर उधर, एंड देन ही आस्क्ड द क्वेश्चन कि अच्छा स्टार्ट करते हैं, तुम आओगे? मैं बोला हाँ सर मैं आएगा. ठीक है चलो मैं तुमको बाद में डिटेल्स बताऊंगा. द कॉन्वर्सेशन क्लोज्ड. And then over a period of next 2-3 months, we sort of discussed, other co-founders came on board.
Right.
And then we started finally in 2016.
So you were the first one who was onboarded?
I think he had the conversation with all of us in parallel. I won't say I was the first one, but yeah, I was the junior most one. Yeah. So that's how I think it happened. None of this was planned. So as I said, I always had visualized only a factory, and I think my most audacious dream was कि एक फैक्ट्री में काम करने को मिल जाए जैसे मेरे पापा काम करते हैं. So that's what I had basically thought of.
But I'm very, very interested to understand why you, right? Because difference था, right? He was very senior in the organization. आपने 2-3 साल ही spend किए थे. what do you think you did right in those early years, right, which made him choose you as a co-founder? I think that's very interesting would be interesting to understand.
Just before I come to this question, कि 3-4 साल आप काम करो. See, looking back, I think my decision was the safest. So my father was still working. He had 4 to 5 years of job left in Grasim. I had zero liabilities. Asian Paints was a very good paymaster. I had no family. All the rest of the 3 co-founders had families and liabilities. So I think the decision was easiest for me. So we were having a conversation just before this. ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा क्या होता? 1 साल या 2 साल नहीं चलती कंपनी, वापस वही एक एक्सपीरियंस जुड़ जाता. So this is what I tell everyone: be open to experiences, be open to take risk, probably on your risk appetite. कि what can go wrong? Even if something would have gone wrong, I think एक जॉब मिल जाती जो शायद एशियन पेंट्स इतनी अच्छी नहीं होती, but मिल जाता.
Right.
So the risk was not that high for me.
No, that's very, very interesting and great lesson for someone who's trying to build career. I'll come to the industry now. You know, you're operating in robotics or warehousing in general, automation, very capital intensive, slow to scale, right? In such a scenario, how do you convince your ecosystem around you, which could be your investors, your partners, the other stakeholders, right, to put a bet on your vision? वो कैसे होता है?
I can only answer for Addverb and how it worked for us. Everybody will have their own playbook. So what worked for us was, while we were at Asian Paints, so we were building these factories. So all rest of my co-founders were part of a team called Mantech in Asian Paints. So Mantech team factory setup karta tha. See, in terms of investors, now we never went out and pitched to any of the VCs, which is Vulture Capital.
Yes.
Or Venture Capital.
Venture capitalist.
However you want to see it, not very different, right? So we never went to VCs. We never went to private equity. We never went to anyone. So our boss at Asian Paints was Mr. Jalaj Dani, who is also the promoter of Asian Paints. And so when we left, he sort of said कि अच्छा आपको कुछ लगेगा तो आप बताइएगा. So Asian Paints as an organization did not have a caste system. There is a caste system in India, right? You're from different caste. In a lot of rural places, your caste decides where you can go, where you can enter, etc. So ऐसा organizations में भी caste system होता है. तो बहुत सारे organization में जो CEOs हैं, उनके elevators अलग होते हैं, right? Factories में there is a caste of workers, तो उनका canteen अलग होगा. There is a caste of contractual workers, तो उनका uniform अलग होगा. So if you closely observe, there is a caste system that is created in organizations as well. So Asian Paints as an organization was very forward-looking. You could just you can take an appointment and walk into an office of Jalaj Dani. He will just sit beside you in the same canteen, have the same food, that much of accessibility. My CEO will use the same canteen, same office. I can just sort of go and take an appointment. So the accessibility was there, and he would come to factories regularly. He would talk to us. So when we were leaving, he sort of said, ki, if you need anything, just let me know. So when we started doing this, we realized, so see, when you're an employee, you don't understand all this capital intensive, especially in supply chain and production. आपको सिर्फ production और supply chain समझता है.
Output देख रहा अंदर.
हाँ, कि कैसे manufacture करना है. Then you start to realize, अच्छा machines लगेगा, पैसा लगेगा. बैंक के पास जाओगे तो बैंक बोलेंगे कि 3 साल का बैलेंस शीट दिखाओ, P&L स्टेटमेंट दिखाओ. अरे अभी तो बने ही 1 साल में, अपना पीएफ का पैसा डाल के तो कंपनी बनाया है, तो फिर कैसे बैलेंस शीट दिखा दें. सो यू स्टार्ट एक्सपीरियंसिंग ऑल दोज चैलेंजेस. सो वी रीच्ड आउट टू हिम एंड वी सेड वी आर डूइंग दिस. ही विजिटेड अस, ही सॉ द वर्क. आई रिमेंबर ही सेड, अच्छा आप लोग रोबोट्स बनाओगे, रोबोट्स खरीदेगा कौन? सो वी सेड, दिस इज 2016-17. सो वी सेड नहीं इंडिया में चलेगा. एंड ही वॉज वेरी ग्रेशियस इनफ टू इन्वेस्ट. सो ही वॉज आवर फर्स्ट इन्वेस्टर एंड बैकर. And we never had to go anywhere. I see myself as being very lucky, Addverb being very lucky. So 2017, there was an election in Uttar Pradesh and the government had just changed. We had just moved into Noida. And we saw an advertisement in newspaper where a photo था chief minister का and startup UP scheme. तो एक startup India scheme था, startup UP scheme. You can apply for plots for building up factories. तो हमने बोला अप्लाई करते हैं, लॉटरी सिस्टम है, क्या होगा, सबने बोला नहीं नोएडा में तो मिलता ही नहीं, ऐसा वैसा XYZ ABC। तो हमने अप्लाई कर दिया, हमारा इंटरव्यू भी आ गया, हम इंटरव्यू देने गए। द IAS ऑफिसर टुक आवर इंटरव्यू, didn't believe कि we are building robots. At 8 PM in the night he came to our office without telling us, और हम लोग ट्रक में डिस्पैच के लिए सामान लोड कर रहे हैं। एंड देन वी सॉ हिम एंड वी रियलाइज्ड, अरे इनको तो इंटरव्यू दिया था कुछ दिन पहले। तो ही सेड कि नहीं, मैं देखने आ रहा हूँ कि आप लोग रोबोट्स बनाते हैं या नहीं। सो ही सॉ इट एंड वी गॉट द लैंड, राइट। तो वी बिल्ड आवर फैक्ट्री। फिर उसके बाद स्टार्टअप इंडिया में देयर वाज अ मैंडेट फॉर PSUs टू इन्वेस्ट। सो वी अगेन सॉ, तो हम लोग, एक अच्छा आदत था, पेपर थोड़ा पढ़ते थे। तो पेपर में ऐड देखा, गेल का एक ऐड आया है, पंख। तो पंख में दे सेड कि एनी स्टार्टअप विच इज इनटू मैन्युफैक्चरिंग मेक्स सेंस फॉर अस, आप अप्लाई करो। सो संगीत इज एक्स गेल, सो 1 year ही स्पेंट इन गेल बिफोर ज्वाइनिंग एशियन पेंट्स। तो हमने डाल दिया एक्स एम्प्लॉय ऐसा वैसा, वेब पेज पे जाके एप्लीकेशन भर दिया। वी एक्चुअली गॉट अ कॉल फ्रॉम गेल एंड दे सेड कि मेक अ प्रेजेंटेशन टू आवर टीम एंड CMD एटसेट्रा। वी मेड अ प्रेजेंटेशन, गेल ऑल्सो इन्वेस्टेड। फिर उसके बाद फैक्ट्री बनाया। फैक्ट्री इसलिए बनाया बिकॉज वी रियलाइज्ड कि एक इकोसिस्टम बनाना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि रोबोटिक्स का कंपनी इंडिया में कोई है नहीं। देयर आर ओनली 1 or 2 people doing some bit of robotics probably. So we will have to build our own machine shop, tool room. We realized it, we need to control the supply chain, we need to indigenize the product. So we built our first factory. So when we started reaching out to people to sell our product, तो all the big companies refused. तो सबका होता है ना, 3 रेफरेंस लेके आओ, 5 साल का हिस्ट्री लेके आओ, ये सर्टिफिकेशन लेके आओ, वो लेके आओ, तब आप वेंडर बनोगे। फिर परचेज प्रोसेस इन लोगों का 6 महीने का होता है, 3 महीने का होता है। आई एम श्योर ऑल ऑफ यू would have experienced or would have heard about all these processes. So the first guy who bets on you, or the first customer who bets on you, either needs to have that sympathy to give you an opportunity, right? Or needs to have a very pressing requirement so that he can waive off these necessities and sort of give you an order, right? So आपको, मान लो आपको कुछ खरीदना है, रात में चोट लग गया, डेटॉल की जगह कोई लोकल प्रोडक्ट अवेलेबल है, आपको खरीदना, तो आप खरीदोगे।
ऑप्शन नहीं है,
करेक्ट। या फिर आपके किसी दोस्त का कंपनी है, आपको सिंपैथी है, इसका प्रोडक्ट है, मुझे ट्राई करना है। सो द फर्स्ट 2 customers are very interesting. One, so anyone from Bangalore here or Hyderabad? Bangalore, great. So have you heard about a drink called Fizz Jeera? Bindu Fizz Jeera. They were our first customers. There's a guy called Shankar Anna, who is a sort of a self-made entrepreneur. Amazing factory, operated mainly by a women. I went to his factory in Puttur. So he was gracious enough to give us an opportunity. So when he met us, heard our story, so he got sold on the story. And he said, I'll give you an opportunity to deploy your hardware. The second organization that gave us an opportunity for hardware was Patanjali.
Oh, interesting.
So Patanjali was growing really fast in 2016, right? They were growing really fast. We met Acharya Balkrishna. He said, order hai, 6 mahine mein karna hai. No organization is ready to do it. Can you do it? He said, yes. Why not? There was no option of saying no.
Neki aur pooch.
We said, we'll do it. And he gave us an opportunity, gracious enough to give us an opportunity. So these were our 2 first customers.
And then the rest is history.
Yeah, and then we got their references. So we were able to enter into all these companies which said 3 reference leke aao, existence leke aao, customer ka check leke aao. So that was about getting first set of customers. We got order from Reliance for their JioMart business. We automated almost 7 to 8 warehouses for them. That's where I think there was a good relationship that we developed as a customer and as a vendor. And then subsequently, they decided to invest. And they then invested around 140 million as Series B round. So that's how our investments also happened. So we never went and pitched to any of the VCs per se, or private equity for that matter.
I'll take a step back, right? Early years again. You had an idea, all 4 of you had an idea that this is what we want to build. And all of us in India will have some idea. All of us dream of some idea, but very few of us do the right execution. Certain challenges which will come, certain hurdles which will come. I'm sure you would have also faced those hurdles. Hiring could be one of those. Building that top solid tech could be another. But just want to hear it from you that what were those top 4, top 3 struggles, which came in, the challenges which came in, and how did you navigate through that?
Sure. So as a 3-4 नहीं, ऐसा 300-400 स्ट्रगल्स है, अभी भी है. शुरू से सी वी हैड एन आइडिया कि ठीक है वेयरहाउस ऑटोमेशन, फैक्ट्री रोबोटिक्स करना है, बट वो भी एक बहुत वाइड फील्ड है. देयर कुड बी हंड्रेड्स ऑफ थिंग्स दैट यू कुड डू. ये पता था कि वेयरहाउस और फैक्ट्री बनाना आता है, वो बनाएंगे. देन ओवर सो यू ऑल्सो इवॉल्व. So your idea that you had thought on the first day need not be the same idea that you build on, correct? You also evolve as an organization. Right. So in first year of our existence, we did a lot of consulting. Consulting in the sense कि not like BCG, McKinsey. कोई फैक्ट्री है, कोई सप्लाई चेन टीम है, दे वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड कि यार मेरा फैक्ट्री का लेआउट कैसा होना चाहिए, right? या दिस इज माय एग्जिस्टिंग प्रोसेस, हाउ कैन आई इंप्रूव माय OEE, राइट? एफिशिएंसी इक्विपमेंट का मैं कैसे बढ़ा सकता हूँ, मैं किस तरीके से और ऑटोमेशन ला सकता हूँ. ऐसे छोटा छोटा प्रोजेक्ट्स ऑफ द हैंड लोगों का रहता है, इनोवेशन प्रोजेक्ट्स होता है. एंड वी हैड अ लॉट ऑफ कॉन्टैक्ट्स बिकॉज देयर वर लॉट ऑफ एशियन पेंट्स फ्रेंड्स हु हैड गॉन ऑन. सो एशियन पेंट्स इज अ वेरी गुड कंपनी इन सप्लाई चेन. तो बहुत सारी कंपनी में देयर वर आर एक्स कॉलीग्स, सो दे गिव अस एन अपॉर्चुनिटी इन टर्म्स ऑफ कंसल्टिंग. वी अंडरस्टूड कि क्या प्रोडक्ट पोर्टफोलियो बनाना है, एंड दैट्स हाउ फिक्स्ड एंड फ्लेक्सिबल ऑटोमेशन केम. द फर्स्ट चैलेंज वाज दैट देयर वाज नो रिलायबल इकोसिस्टम, एज आई हैड मेंशन्ड. I think this was a big challenge because of which we built 2 factories, and combined together these 2 factories are world's largest capabilities for manufacturing mobile robots, so robots that can move. So there was no reliable ecosystem क्योंकि जो ecosystem था वो तो Honda जैसी कंपनियां ले चुकी थी. So they would be manufacturing cars and 2-wheelers in bulk. You go and you tell a supplier कि अच्छा मेरा 50 component बना दो, तो वो बोलेगा बाहर से ही लौट जाओ. Correct. राइट. सो और वो भी आप गारंटी नहीं दे सकते क्योंकि ये तो मेड टू ऑर्डर है. सो दैट वाज अ बिग चैलेंज एट दैट टाइम, दैट वी हैड टू बिल्ड रिलायबिलिटी इन आवर सप्लाई चेन मैन्युफैक्चरिंग. सेकेंड, ऑब्वियसली गेटिंग द राइट टैलेंट इन प्लेस वॉज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, कि किस तरीके से हम राइट टैलेंट को लेके आए कि यार प्रोजेक्ट तो लेके आ गए, उसको डिलीवर भी तो करना है. दैट इज ऑल्सो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. थर्ड वॉज दैट सी इट इज नॉट ओनली अबाउट हार्डवेयर, right? So we are probably one of the rare startup from India which was into both hardware and software, and we were developing both in-house. So we are an IP heavy company. We filed more than 50 patents, received more than 20-25 patents. So आपको हार्डवेयर भी बनाना था और आपको सॉफ्टवेयर भी बनाना था, and you had to ensure that it was integrated, right? And then obviously one of the challenges was to make this work in a factory. Right. So once you have manufactured the hardware, built the software, gone to the factory, deployed your solution, it has to work. There you have to work alongside the customer to deploy those solutions. So it is very important to, because there are a lot of stories in the market about many players जिनको customers ने 1 साल के बाद बोल दिया था भाई अपना product वापस ले जाओ, तो नहीं चल रहा. Right. That's like the dead end for the product, right? So we didn't want to be like that. So these were some of the initial challenges that I could think of. फिर ऐसा तो और भी चैलेंज आया, कोविड आया, सब कुछ बंद हो गया, प्रोडक्ट डिलीवर करना था. कोविड आया, एकदम से लॉकडाउन हो गया. मोर देन 100 of our employees were stuck across different locations at project sites. सबको कैसे घर से निकाला. So बहुत सारा चीज था. But these were some initial challenges that I could think of or we faced and we solved early on.
Very interesting. And I'll pick on the COVID piece, right? So, when COVID came, the warehouses and all probably would have been operating at a very lower scale, right?
This is not the right phrase, but again, a blessing in disguise for us. तो जब आया 2 महीने तक कुछ नहीं पता था क्या होगा, but then we sort of realized everybody wants to go for automation.
Post-COVID?
Immediately after the lockdown. So the number of inquiries increased. राइट. इनवर्ड इंक्वायरी आने लग गया बिकॉज पीपल रियलाइज कि लॉकडाउन है, मैन पावर मूवमेंट हो नहीं सकता, सो फटाफट ऑर्डर चाहिए. अब टिपिकली तो बहुत सारा चीज हुआ. अब एक सेल्स साइकिल बहुत लंबा होता है. तो अगर मान लो मुझे एज एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन पहली बार 100 करोड़ का ऑर्डर मिल रहा है, तो पहले इंजीनियर मिलेगा, फिर मैनेजर मिलेगा, फिर HOD मिलेगा, फिर डायरेक्टर मिलेगा, फिर वाइस प्रेसिडेंट मिलेगा, देन CFO मिलेगा, शायद CEO भी मिलेगा. सबका अलग अलग टाइम होगा, तो 8 से 10 मीटिंग होगा. बट कोविड में क्या हुआ, बिकॉज पीपल वांटेड थिंग्स सो फास्ट एंड पीपल वर हैविंग दीज मीटिंग्स वर्चुअली. तो आप सोचो ये 8 मीटिंग एक ही मीटिंग में हो जा रहा है, राइट? सो द सेल्स साइकिल क्रैश्ड. सो इट वाज एक्चुअली अ ब्लेसिंग इन डिस्गाइज. तो वो जो 2 साल थे उसमें हमारा ग्रोथ बहुत अच्छा हुआ. सो समवेयर अराउंड 60 करोड़ से हम सीधे 250-300 करोड़ पे पहुंच गए. सो दैट वाज बिकॉज देयर वाज अ लॉट ऑफ एंजाइटी ओवरऑल कि क्या होगा, कभी भी लॉकडाउन हो जाएगा, खुलेगा नहीं खुलेगा. सो ऑटोमेशन वाज द लॉजिकल सोल्यूशन. You have more automation where you need less people, less number of touches, and that's where we saw every company moving, especially the retail and e-commerce companies.
Right. So I think not all disasters are disasters. Some are blessing in disguise.
Some are blessings in disguise.
And now, since we are also talking about sales and expansion, would also love to know about the international side of things. Right? You've gone global, and you have multiple customers out across the globe. Right? What are how did you approach this journey? And despite knowing there are players who are well reputed players across the globe, how was this journey for you?
Now there are global players who are very big, right? We compete with Japanese players, we compete with Chinese players, Germans, Austrians, obviously Americans. But there is something that really sets Indian companies apart in such context, which is the software. Right? So India, we do not have our own generative AI model per se. There's a lot of criticism on Indian software services companies that they are not investing. But what they have done is something that's really unthinkable, that I think there are more than 2 million or 3 million people in India who really understand software engineering.
Wow.
Right? And that sets our software really apart. If you're building a software, every big company you can think of has a software development center in India.
Right.
There's a reason for it. So our software really sets us apart. And our software was also based on microservices architecture, had a new technology stack, was more flexible. We could deploy it on cloud, we could deploy it on-prem. So these factors set our entire solution apart because customer was looking for configurability. कि अच्छा हार्डवेयर लगा दिया, सॉफ्टवेयर में चेंजेस कितना जल्दी आप इनकॉर्पोरेट कर सकते हो, राइट? एंड देन बिकॉज ऑफ द वे वी हैड बिल्ट आवर स्टैक, it was easier for us to accommodate those changes. That got us a foot in the door. That helped us to get on a conversation table. And a lot of customers realized that this is a big advantage.
Right. The combination of having both hardware
and software, and then the ability to have the software which can change, which can be customized, which can be configured. So these were some of the things that helped us expand globally.
Probably acted as a USP for you.
Yes.
So, Satish, on this front, would also want to understand. If I look at the current startups, right? It's flooded in D2C. There are so many aggregators, assemblers who have come through, right? This space is still not untouched. There's still not many players here, right? What do you think is stopping people now to enter in this space?
तो पहले तो आपने जो टच किया कि बहुत सारा D2C एग्रीगेटर्स, तो एक फिनोमिनन है इंडिया में जो इंडिया में ही प्ले आउट होता है. तो एंड ऑल ऑफ यू वुड हैव एक्सपीरियंस्ड इट. सो लेट्स से अगर कोई इंसिडेंट हुआ, जैसे देयर वाज अ पूना पोर्शा केस सम टाइम बैक, तो आप एकदम से देखने लगोगे कि इंडिया में और भी जगह वैसे ही इंसिडेंट होने लगते हैं. आई हैव नेवर बीन एबल टू रियलाइज व्हाई. अगर कोई फ्लाइट इंसिडेंट हुआ अनफॉर्चुनेट, तो नेक्स्ट 15 डेज, 30 डेज, 45 डेज वैसे इंसिडेंट्स होने लगते हैं. राइट? यस और नो? आई थिंक ऑल ऑफ अस हैव एक्सपीरियंस्ड इट कि एक इंसिडेंट होता है तो फिर 2-3 महीने तक वैसे इंसिडेंट्स ही होते रहते हैं. तो मुझे लगता है ये स्टार्टअप स्पेस भी वैसे ही है कि एक D2C फेमस हुआ तो अब बस D2C स्पेसेस ही आ रहे हैं, एग्रीगेटर फेमस हुआ तो अब बस एग्रीगेटर ही आ रहे हैं. आई थिंक दैट्स अ वेरी इंडियन फिनोमिनन. बट वो होता क्या है कि एक बार कोई चीज सक्सेसफुल हो जाती है तो पीपल टिपिकली थिंक कि आई विल बिकम द उबर ऑफ ट्रक्स, आई विल बिकम द ओयो ऑफ हॉस्टल्स और व्हाटएवर इट इज. So that's how the journey of building 1,000 D2C brands stems. I think in robotics, at least, so there are 5 companies which have been started by ex-Addverb employees.
Wow.
Right, in robotics and automation. So I know there are more than 50 companies. We need 5,000 actually. But one thing that I feel stops people from venturing into this is our pedagogy. So I won't take anyone else's example, but मैं अपना ही example लेता हूँ. तो I was a software engineer, but engineering के first year में there is a subject called basic mechanical engineering.
Yeah.
और एक workshop होता है.
ME 101.
Yes. तो workshop में जाके आपको एक job बनाना होता है लेथ पे.
Yes.
Correct? बहुत गर्मी होती है वहाँ. मतलब उस टाइम होती थी, आई डोंट नो आज की डेट में होती है नहीं होती ही होगी.
NIT में तो थी.
हाँ, तो हमारे यहाँ भी थी. तो बहुत गर्मी रहती है. तो आप टिपिकली लेथ मशीन में जाके जॉब वॉब कुछ बनाते नहीं, है ना? तो आप बैठे रहते हो, आप गायब हो जाते हो, आप गुम जाते हो. एंड देन जब आपका सेशनल या प्रैक्टिकल होता है तो वो जॉब्स बहुत सारे रखे रहते हैं वहाँ पे. सो जॉब इज बेसिकली अ पीस ऑफ स्क्वायर और अ सिलेंडर, वट एवर डिजाइन हैज बीन असाइन टू यू. करेक्ट? तो आप वो एक सिलेंडर बना के या लैब असिस्टेंट से मांग के ले आते हो और बोलते हो ये मैंने बना दिया. आई हैव डन इट. सो एंड आई हैव सीन मेनी अदर पीपल डू इट. समहाउ वी डोंट वैल्यू स्किल्स, हार्डवेयर स्किल्स. Right? So the skill of wiring, the skill of building a mechanical design. If you do engineering outside India, especially if you go to Europe or if you go to US, a robotics engineer would be able to understand mechanical design. He would be able to understand electronics, embedded क्या है, and then obviously Python programming तो करेगा. यहाँ पे रोबोटिक्स का मतलब क्या होता है, मैं सिमुलेट कर लूंगा सब कुछ और फिर मैं प्रोग्रामिंग और कोड करने लगूंगा C++ पे. नाउ दैट हैज सम लॉन्ग टर्म इम्पैक्ट्स वेयर अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम यू डोंट गेट कॉन्फिडेंस इन हार्डवेयर, राइट? एंड रोबोटिक्स इज फिजिकल AI. So it is not only about software, but you have to build an agent, a physical agent that can perform all the actions that the software intends to do. So because of that, and this is my observation and I could be totally wrong, I feel people do not get a lot of confidence in building hardware, right? Abhi jaise in engineering we are not taught design. A very basic subject that should be taught. I'm not talking about engineering design. Everything has design. Even the bottle that is kept in front of us, the way you're designing your university, correct? Jaise design thinking bhi hota hai.
Right.
All these things are not taught. Our pedagogy of engineering is very mechanical in nature. कि अच्छा engineering mechanics पढ़ लिया, mechanical पढ़ लिया, civil पढ़ लिया, ये पढ़ लिया, अब भाई तू code करने लग. And then obviously there are a lot of jobs in software. So people feel that if they choose software, it will be a safer option for them. Because of which they do not venture out into a lot of hardware oriented startups. This is what I have seen and what I feel based on my observation. But as new institutions are coming which are following new pedagogy, like when I was coming and I got to know about the pedagogy that you guys have, where everybody has to build a startup and they have to experience everything, right? There is something called a yo-yo methodology that MIT follows, where you have to build a yo-yo when you're entering into their course. So to build a yo-yo, you need to go and work on machines, you need to tie a thread, you need to make sure it works, correct? So now I am seeing a lot of new young age colleges are coming up, which have this very good industrial practice, very good labs, where now people are getting hands-on experience. And many startups are coming from these places as well in the field of hardware, especially robotics, drones, industrial automation.
Got it. So the problem typically lies in, how we are trained in the engineering colleges.
How we are trained to think. How we are trained to think in engineering. So in the West, अगर घर में कुछ खराब हुआ तो that person will first try to fix it on their own, right? यहाँ पे जैसे ही कुछ होता है तो हम अर्बन कंपनी से बुक कर लेंगे कि वो फटाफट आए और वो कर ले. And even if it would be a very minor job that we need to do, that speaks something about us, right? That we are not very confident in jobs that. तो स्कूल में भी जैसे पहले एक क्लासेस होती थी SUPW वोकेशन, राइट? उसमें फोटो खींचना सिखाते थे, लकड़ी का काम सिखाते थे. आई नो पीपल और स्टूडेंट्स हु वुड नॉट क्लिक फोटोग्राफ्स बट वुड टेल अ फोटोग्राफर टू गिव देम 4 photographs and submit it in exam. But now they would not do any woodwork. They would just go and take किसी कारपेंटर से कुछ काम लिया और वो दिखा देंगे कि ये हमने SUPW में बनाया है. That's how it has been, right? So we are a very education based country जहाँ पे फिजिक्स मैथ्स पढ़ो, पाइथागोरस थ्योरम प्रूव करो तो वैल्यू है. अगर तुम कुछ बना रहे हो हाथ से तो उसका वैल्यू नहीं है. वी आर लुक डाउन अपॉन, राइट? आई थिंक दैट्स what plays out. But there are many companies where I know which have been started by people who are not even BTech, but they are practitioners, where they had this passion of building things. and then they have been able to translate it into an organization, into products which are really world class.
I think truth bombs have been dropped, but really helpful. I think India, we've kind of focused so much on outsourcing and output ही देख रहे हैं, input क्या है, that has been always overlooked upon. I think probably one of the reasons, why we don't see so many startups in this space. You spoke about physical AI, right? And physical robots, right? Is that what the application of AI in robotics is? I mean, can you explain that more?
Sure. So AI. So we are already using AI in robotics. So our autonomous mobile robot product is based on computer vision, is enabled with lidar and sensors. So different types of sensors, which help that robot to make a decision as to where it is. So it creates a map of the surroundings, and then through that map, it will know where it is located, and then you can assign it a task where it has to go transfer the material, etc. And it goes and performs that task. It finds the shortest path. If an obstacle comes in between, it changes its path, because through lidar and through cameras, it can see something like what autonomous driving car does, or something like Waymo does, but in a more controlled environment of a warehouse. क्योंकि सड़क पे तो गाय आ जाएगी, कुत्ता आ जाएगा, है ना, हम ही लोग दौड़ के चले जाएंगे, कुछ भी हो सकता है इंडिया में तो. So but in a warehouse, in a factory, the environment is more structured. So we are already using a lot of AI, a lot of algorithms, SLAM algorithms, CNN algorithms for these vision applications. But the next frontier that is going to be opened is physical AI. So see, you have to understand all these robotics applications are special purpose robots. So if you would have seen in auto industry, there would be an industrial arm which will pick and place products, or which will weld joints, etc. So that's a special purpose robotics. Then you would see SCARA robots or 4-degree robots which will perform. So if you would have seen ice cream cones, unko dabbe mein dalte hain, us type ka application can be done by those robots. So these are special purpose robots, right? Now with physical AI, or the application of AI that you're talking about, or embodied AI, now we will see evolution of general purpose robots. So these robots will not only perform the task, but will learn from their environment, evolve, and then transform themselves. So general purpose robots kya hua, jaise quadruped, a robotic dog. Like we have our own robotic dog which we call Tracker. So hamare paas, so our two best employees are Doga and Doodle.
Doga and Doodle.
Doga and Doodle. So one is a German Shepherd and one is a Golden Retriever. तो डोगा कॉमिक्स बचपन में बहुत पढ़ते थे हम, तो हमने बोला इसका नाम डोगा रखेंगे. तो देन somebody got an idea कि चलो खुद का डॉग बनाते हैं, and then we made a companion of Doga and Doodle called Tracker. So now all three of them play together at Bot Valley, which is our first factory.
Yeah.
So Tracker is a general purpose robot which can do surveillance, which can do security. It has different sensors with actuators. It can climb upstairs, go down. It can be used to carry load, payload from one place to another. Now, similarly, we are also working on humanoids, and many companies have launched humanoids which are biped robots. Now, what happens is that there are, in general purpose robotics, the robot has to evolve, right? So how does it evolve? There is something called VLA, Visual Language Action. So it takes, जैसे generative AI में आप text लेते हो and through text it evolves. Similarly, it takes all the images and all the surrounding information that it is getting, and the robot will involve. There will be two levels of policy decisions. A low-level policy decision which will be acted upon more frequently, and a high-level policy decision which will be acted upon less frequently. So to say कि when the tracker or the quadruped enters the room, it sees the environment and then it knows कि अच्छा मुझे यहाँ जाना है. And then through computer vision and navigation module, it will chart its own path.
Wow.
Right? So this is all AI. Now I cannot program thousands of scenario in Tracker. So what I need to do is I need to create an algorithm that learns on itself based on all the visual language input that it has received. I just create a set of policies or rules that cannot be violated. And then the robot evolves as per the environment. So that is something that we are working on with our general purpose robotics division, which we called Advanced Robotics, where we have built our own quadruped, we have built our own collaborative robot, cobot. So if you typically see an industrial robot works inside cage in a factory. So if you there have been incidences where these industrial robots have killed people because people bypassed safety and went inside. They did not have the safety features. But with cobot or a collaborative robot, a human can work side by side with the robot because they are enabled with vision system. They work at different speeds. The material with which they are built will not harm a human. So we have also built our own cobot. We have built our own remote ultrasound application in collaboration with IIT Delhi and AIIMS, where a doctor could be at any other location
but can still see
and can perform the ultrasound with the help of a cobot. So we developed this solution during COVID, where we said कि दोनों को risk है. The person who's coming for getting an ultrasound done is also at risk. The doctor is also at risk of an infection. So we developed this solution where the doctor could perform this ultrasound, remote ultrasound on 5G.
And is this live?
Yeah, we have deployed this, and we did this pilot with AIIMS.
Wow.
And now we also sort of deployed it on 5G. So you don't need to have Wi-Fi. So these are the kind of solutions that we have developed, which are examples of AI and the sort of new solutions that are being developed. These are examples of what more can be done with robotics.
All of this is very mesmerizing and very, very proud to understand, that the world has moved here, right? But we would also want to understand from a leader that what would be the next decade of this industry, like, what potentially can probably happen, which some of us can't even think of right now. Like, how do you think this industry will shape in the next decade?
So I think the jobs that we know, the way we know, are definitely going to change. And we are seeing a lot of that right now. In terms of, so, okay, content ban gaya, photos अच्छे हो गए, सब लोग अच्छे दिखने लग गए, सोशल मीडिया पोस्ट आ गया, ईमेल लिख लिया, अब ये 4 साल से तो जनरेटिव है, ये सब दे रहा है. बट रियल वर्ल्ड इम्पैक्ट कहाँ क्रिएट होगा? सो हाउ वी सी इट एज दैट देयर आर 3D jobs, what we call 3D jobs: dull, dirty, and dangerous. So the job of lifting heavy weight, the job of, so in a warehouse, in a big warehouse of any big company, any operator would need to walk for 10 to 15 kilometers a day in an 8-hour shift with probably 2 bio breaks, 1 lunch break for 10 minutes. Now this is a very dull job, right? He has to walk and he has to pick his material. Uska kya career growth hoga?
Right.
So jobs which are strenuous in nature, which require a lot of grunt work, are definitely going to be eliminated with all the specialized robotics and general purpose robotics. Today, there is also a study published where they mention ki kitna robots deployed hai per 1,000 workers, where the density of India is very less. It's in single digits. But again, that study is only limited to industrial robots, which is the industrial robot example that I gave, the robotic arm. There will be robots which will move your material, right? Even at airports, you would not have fixed conveyor systems, but there would be robots to which you can just tie your luggage, and this robot will take your luggage to the final drop point for the plane. There will be absolutely no grunt work involved. That's how we see the future, where robots will take away all the manual and strenuous activities. This does not mean that jobs will finish. No. You will still be required for jobs that require creativity, subjectivity, judgment, maintaining all these equipments, right? So that's how we see evolution in the next decades, where not only specialized robots will be used, their deployment will obviously increase, but general purpose robotics will also find applications. Like, to give you a so we have already seen what happened in the escalation between India and Pakistan, right?
Yeah.
It was all drones.
Yeah.
And we are seeing so effectively the war between Russia and Ukraine is a war of robotics. You can see different types of technologies that are being used by Ukraine in an uneven challenge.
Absolutely.
Right? That does not mean that you don't need the infantry. You still need the infantry. But this is how technology will change and transform even day-to-day operations. Your physically heavy jobs are going to be eliminated. That's how we see evolution of specialized and general purpose robotics in next decade.
Very, very interesting. And if I have to ask, as all of us, right, as students, as learners, how do you guys think of use cases for the future, right? For example, maybe you spoke about the airport example when a robot will pick up your luggage and put it to destination. But how does that brainstorming happen, right?
Sure.
can you guide us that how does listeners and anyone who's listening who's at a very learning age think about such use cases?
Sure. So, as I said, that we follow a framework of 3D. Dull, dirty, and dangerous. So the job should be dull, dirty, and dangerous in nature. Those jobs should be eliminated. Those jobs can be automated because there is an incentive for employer as well as employee to eliminate that job. You need to focus on repeatability. So the job should have a certain amount of repeatability. If I have to pick up material and place it at a particular location, there's a repeatability in that job. The solution should have scalability. It should not happen that if I'm deploying 100 robots, all the 100 robots need modification of different kind, right? So if taking the example of an airport, I can have 100 autonomous mobile robots, which will be of same type where I can keep the luggage. I don't need to modify each and every robot. So the scalability should be there. The problem repeatability should be there. And then obviously the software should add value. So it should not just become another subscription tool. कि मुझे ChatGPT का subscription मिल गया, मैंने दिखा दिया एक project कर दिया कि मेरा कैसा efficiency आ गया. That software should add value. You should be able to integrate a lot of hardware on that piece of software, right? It should not happen that if you are deploying 10 automation systems, you need 10 softwares to manage those 10 automation systems. These are some of the basic guiding principles of frameworks that we have, right? From a customer point of view, we always ask 3 questions. Which I call as adverb era. Will this automation add reliability? Will this automation add accuracy? And at the end, will this automation or robotic solution add efficiency? So efficiency, reliability, accuracy. So efficiency covers a lot of things. Cost should go down, right? Accuracy मतलब ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि आपने order किया warehouse से कुछ. It should be on time, every time, and the right product, correct? And then the automation solution should be reliable. It should be easy to maintain. The total cost of ownership should be less. Right. If all these things are in place, then probably the solution will make sense, or probably that job, the customer will agree to replace that job. One more thing that we need to understand, see, the use case for robotics and automation in the West is different. वहाँ पे people don't turn up for jobs, right? So बहुत सारी जगह पे तो population ही कम है. Right. Then they don't want to work in warehouses and factories. So a company like UPS would be willing to pay a warehouse operator around $100,000, $110,000. They still don't turn up. So there they do not have an option but to go for automation. In India, the case is different. People are there. Yeah. But if you have to build a business that scales fast, you need to go for automation. Right. There is no other way you can scale, as we were discussing the example of Patanjali, which was scaling very fast. So they needed a solution that could come up very quickly in their Padartha factory.
Independent of people, basically.
Correct. So we just did a solution for Blinkit. So you would have seen Dipinder Goyal sharing videos of the warehouse. Right. That's the warehouse that has been done by us. Fantastic. So you can again see it as a sector which is growing very fast. So any sector which is growing or scaling very fast needs to go for automation in robotics because they have to be efficient, reliable, and accurate. If they are saying they will deliver you in 10 minutes, they have to deliver you in 10 minutes. So if you have to build more efficiency, reliability, you need to go for robotics and automation.
And also you all are doing justice to the names as well. Bot, Valley, and Bot words.
Yeah.
So Valley needs to have elements of sustainability.
Sustainability, correct.
To try for the future. Interesting. I think so far we have had a very meaningful discussion on your journey around the business, right? Now I would want to pick something from your personal life, right? So some lessons around how has been your journey like. So if you were restarting the journey, taking back to 10 years back, right? What are some of those early mistakes you would not want to do now, because that these were the things I did wrong, and now if I have to restart, these 5 things are not there in my playbook.
To answer that question first, I'll probably digress. So how many of you?
Almost everyone.
No, not almost everyone. I'm surprised. So for those of you who have watched it, and I'm sorry, for those of you who have not watched it, you might feel excluded. So the protagonist, there are many protagonists. So the protagonists, John and Sansa, they finally win Winterfell. and then they say कि I think the biggest mistake was to leave Winterfell, and we should have not left Winterfell. Correct? So, and then there is another quote where I don't remember who, but somebody tells Jon Snow, whatever you did finally led to here. So ऐसा नहीं है कि so whatever mistakes I did per se sort of led here, right? I'm pretty satisfied or pretty happy with where it led to. But as a professional, or especially as a management professional, it is very important to reflect on what you could have done differently. See, professionally, if I have to touch on Addverb's journey, see, personally, probably I would have not opted for engineering. But now, if you connect the dots, it is helping me a lot.
Right.
In my all life, I wanted to run away from engineering, and somehow I kept on coming back to it. I wanted to run away from North India. I kept on coming back to it.
Factories in North India.
So what I've learned is you don't need to run away from anything. Whatever it is, you enjoy the moment, sort of a thing. Professionally, some of the things that we could have done different. First thing is that we were in the business of making hardware and software, right? But all of us had worked in factories. हम सबका background भी factory का था. So even Beer's father was working in an industry in Kota. Sangeet grew up in Bokaro, which was again the steel factory. In hindsight, I feel we never appreciated the concept of a software working culture. So we were working for 6 days a week for first 6 years, right? And we were forcing the software engineers to work for 6 days a week. So I think a lot of good people didn't join us for this. See, with freshers, it's okay. But with people who are used to working in a particular culture, in a particular way, it is very difficult for them to change. We always bet कि अच्छा नहीं passionate होगा तो आएगा. But शायद वो used to be हो चुका है. Correct? जैसे हम बाहर किसी geography में जाते हैं तो हम बोलते हैं कि अच्छा उनका culture ऐसा है तो हमको respect करना है. Similarly, I think looking back, that is something we could have made that shift earlier. But since all of us came from manufacturing environment, it took us more time to it. So now we have two different software development centers, which are 5 days a week. Okay? The poor souls work even on Sundays if something has gone down, because ours is a continuous process. But now we have understood that the culture of a factory is different from the culture of software. Second, and this is a mistake that a lot of people do, you really identify your right customers. There will be customers who will suck your blood. And there is something called escalation of commitment. राइट तो ऐसा होता है मतलब जस्ट टू गिव यू एन एग्जांपल कि आप किसी टॉक्सिक रिलेशनशिप में हो बट आप मतलब उस रिलेशनशिप में कंटिन्यू किए जा रहे हो क्योंकि आपको लगेगा कि मुझे शुरू से शुरू करना पड़ेगा राइट
the effort of starting again.
हाँ, I don't want to go through that effort of starting again, but there will be light at the end of the tunnel, right? So this is called escalation of commitment. It's a classic organization behavior theory. तो customers के साथ भी ऐसा होता है. आप identify नहीं कर पाते if it, see, you need, as I said, you need to have the right customers who are willing to invest. Sometimes so especially in a B2B business, it is very important कि आप order कितना कर रहे हो. जैसे अगर मैं कोई ऐसा एग्जांपल दूं जो आपको समझ में आए तो देयर इज अ रीजन व्हाई DLF इज सेलिंग 150 crore फ्लैट्स करेक्ट मार्केटिंग एफर्ट उतना ही है प्रोडक्शन एफर्ट उतना ही है अगर वो 2-2 करोड़ के फ्लैट सेल करेगा तो उसका रिटर्न इतना नहीं बनेगा करेक्ट जैसे आपका एसेट स्वेटिंग कहते हैं मतलब अगर अलग लैंग्वेज में देखूं तो यू नीड टू गो फॉर राइट ऑर्डर साइजेस इन B2B बिजनेस. So I think initially we took a lot of small orders and वो small orders में काम उतना ही करा रहे थे जितना वो बड़े order में करते हैं क्योंकि bandwidth उतना ही लग रहा था and but we also felt कि यार customer ने trust किया है तो customer को मतलब जैसे एक toxic relationship में होता है ना कुछ तो light दिखेगा at the end of the tunnel एक positive reference check बन जाएगा तो बहुत सारा छोटा छोटा orders था जो हम 6-6 महीने 7-7 महीने करते गए चेंज अकोमोडेट करते गए शायद हम छोटे थे वो बड़े थे तो वो करवाते भी गए सो आई थिंक दैट वी कुड हैव अवॉइडेड एंड वी कुड हैव सॉर्ट ऑफ गॉन ऑन टू बिगर ऑर्डर्स एंड दैट कुड हैव शॉर्टेंड आवर सेल्स साइकिल. थर्ड, you said this point, but this again I think is our mistake or probably learning. We underestimated B2B sales. So since we were hardcore manufacturing guys, production guys, we felt कि काम होगा तो बाकी सारी चीजें अपने आप हो जाएंगी And I like to look at it that in industrial automation, we were the pioneers in marketing. We use social media very differently. Our competitors were not using it. We sort of went completely digital. We got a lot of leads. Our funnel was good. But we never emphasized on sales per se, right? And sales and marketing are very two different ball games.
Yeah.
We felt कि अच्छा product हो गया, reference हो गया तो बिक जाएगा यार. But we realized कि B2B sales, consultative sales is a very different ball game. And you need to have the right kind of people, and you also need to think differently. तो वो थोड़ा late realization हुआ. I think these were some of the things that we could have avoided, but ऐसा कुछ नहीं यार, सब कुछ अच्छा ही हुआ.
All is well that ends.
Yeah. So just like someone said to Jon Snow, all that you did led you here.
Correct. And what's next for you as a leader? So the background for this is when you joined, you were probably not as experienced as probably the CEO, right? And you would have probably taken a leadership role at a very early stage and probably have refined and probably have, evolved over through the years, right? What next for you as a leader?
Sure. So yeah, that's true. When I moved out of college and joined Asian Paints, I had a team of 7 people who were reporting to me. Now I had 0 work experience. So वो tricky था. But one of the things that really helped me was I was never shy of going to my colleagues and telling them कि मुझे नहीं आता, तो मुझे बताओ ये कैसे होता है. So in HR, I had never made a payroll. मैंने कभी payroll नहीं किया था. तो there was an officer who was doing payroll. तो I said कि ठीक है यार, 1 महीना मुझे करने दो, मुझे बताओ कैसे होता है. How do you give inputs? किस तरीके से calculations होते हैं? I know it theoretically, but I don't understand how practically it is executed. Same problem I faced when I moved into production. कि I was into emulsion block, which makes polymer. So reactor में क्या process होता है, किस तरीके से chemical reactions होते हैं, कौन से pumps लगे हुए हैं, maintenance कैसे होता है, filters क्या होते हैं, क्या challenges होते हैं, क्या breakdown होते हैं, quality में problem solving कैसे होता है, batch खराब कैसे होता है. So there also I did a lot of e-learning. I went and operated shifts along with my shift officer. Right? So there's no harm in telling them कि मुझे नहीं आता भाई, बता दो. Correct? See, at the end of the day, I tell this example to everyone. ऐसा कोई जयकांत सीकरे नहीं होता कि वो सुबह घर से सोच के आता है कि आज 4 लोगों का जीवन खराब करेंगे. Right? So sharing your vulnerabilities with someone also builds trust. Right? And that currency of trust, as I said, is very important. So that sort of helped me in getting to that leadership role. Now coming back to what next from here. So as of now, we want to take this company into the domain of physical AI. Today it's a 600 crore revenue company. Our dream or vision is to make it a $1 billion in revenue company. And among the top 5 robotics company in the world. I think what we have learned is very small. We still need to learn a lot. We need to go to different geographies. We need to understand. So we are also progressing in terms of our order sizes, our customer profile. So that journey is continuous. You cannot say कि हाँ यहाँ आया सीख लिया और अब इससे ज़्यादा तो किसी को नहीं आता. That never happens. There is always something new to learn. So I think that path is going to continue for some more time.
All right, with that, we're towards the end of this conversation. I really thank you again.
Thank you.
Satish, really had the time of life, speaking to you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.